Residential electricity prices across Texas are up about 30% since 2021, roughly $35 to $40 more per month for the average household. The part that doesn't show up on most tech headlines is the fact that a lot of families are already doing something that sounds small, but isn't. They're turning off the air conditioning in the summer, not because they want to, but because the power bill is getting harder to pay. So why, at the same time, is Texas becoming the country's biggest landing zone for AI data centers? And what does that have to do with your bill, your water, and the land around your community? We'll come back to the bill. But first, we need to follow the electricity. As of October 2025, 405 data centers are operating in Texas, according to data provided by Axios, with another 442 new ones under construction or planned in the upcoming years. Texas isn't just getting a few new server buildings, it's entering a new phase of industrial growth, built around computing and AI data centers. A big clue is the ERCOT interconnection queue, the list of massive new loads waiting to plug into the grid. Based on available data, ERCOT's large load interconnection requests total up to roughly 205 gigawatts, with more than 70% tied to data centers. For comparison, the entire ERCOT system's current peak demand record is about 85.5 gigawatts, set in August 2023. In other words, the requests in the queue add up to more than twice the biggest day Texas has ever had. Not all of the new large load requests will be built, but even a fraction represents a massive new load. A single hyperscale data center can run 24/7 and draw energy comparable to tens of thousands of households. In one Texas-focused research brief, a large hyperscale facility is described as consuming the same energy as about 80,000 U.S. households annually. Another report by Texas Matters states that Baxtel's tracking shows 448 data centers in Texas using about 9,400 megawatts of electricity, equivalent to approximately 7.8 million homes under continuous full capacity assumptions. To understand why Texas is becoming the AI data center capital, you have to look at the incentives Texas offered, intentionally and unintentionally, across three layers: policy, power, and money. Researchers working on Texas data centers note that Texas electricity has been cost competitive for large customers. In their overview, the average commercial electricity cost in Texas is described as about 30% lower than the national average, lowering operating costs for data centers. From the policy side, the same research describes a sales tax exemption on equipment and electricity for qualifying data centers. Facilities that are large, invest heavily, and meet job and wage thresholds. Texas Matters also points to few zoning restrictions and frequent local incentives as part of why this boom moved to Texas at this scale. In some communities, the speed of development shows up as a land use shock. A guest columnist describes one Texas project approved on 87 acres originally dedicated for parkland, turning into a windowless industrial facility within 500 feet of homes. So, Texas became attractive for AI infrastructure. But that attractiveness has a mechanical consequence. The grid and local resources now have to expand on a schedule set by private construction timelines, rather than decades-long utility planning. That's the main pressure point that will affect everyone one way or another. Because of the AI boom, demand is accelerating faster than infrastructure can adapt to it, creating four main pressure points: transmission, policy, transmission accessibility, and natural resources. A Texas Energy Poverty Research Institute analysis says the major driver looking forward is utilities spending much more to build and upgrade power lines. That spending is not abstract. The same report cites CenterPoint planning about $20 billion through 2030 on Houston region electric infrastructure, costs expected to be recovered substantially through customer rate increases. Texas policy has started reacting to the scale. One research summary notes ERCOT's approval of a large load interconnection process meant to improve visibility, predictability, risk assessment, and coordination for large loads like data centers. It also highlights policy debates around issues like siting, on-site generation, data reporting, forecasting, and transmission cost recovery. And as grid connection timelines lengthen, developers often don't want to wait. One source describes data center developers building on-site power plants, with natural gas as the fastest practical option for round-the-clock operation. That matters even if those plants aren't on your utility bill directly because fuel markets are shared. That same source describes the mechanism, stating that more gas demand can tighten supply during peaks and push fuel prices higher, which then naturally flows into electricity rates. Yet, electricity is only half of the physical system. Texas Matters reports that cooling systems for AI data centers can require millions of gallons of water per day, depending on the technology used. It also gives benchmarks. A mid-sized data center can consume roughly 300,000 gallons per day, and larger centers up to 4.5 million gallons per day, depending on cooling type. So, in summary, the mechanics of the new build-outs are straightforward. More 24/7 load results in more transmission build-outs. Faster timelines require more on-site electricity generation with natural gas power plants. Increasing gas demand results in upward fuel pressure. More cooling and generation create more water stress. And the costs don't stay inside the fence of a data center campus, but will also affect the surrounding market. This is why it becomes a household story. The TEPRI analysis finds Texas residential electricity prices are up approximately 30% since 2021, adding about $35 to $40 per month to the average household bill. And it's also projecting another approximately 29% increase through 2030, meaning an average household could pay about $580 more per year in 2030 compared to 2025. The burden falls hardest on households already near the edge. TEPRI notes 42% of households qualify as low to moderate income, and many already reduce air conditioning and cut other essentials to keep up with power costs. Now add the other local impacts such as the proximity to homes, farmland usage, and water consumption. Texas is building a second industrial economy on top of the first, one that demands power, water, and land on schedules that don't match how utilities and communities traditionally plan. That's the emotional reality to keep AI running 24/7. Texas is not becoming the data center capital because of one decision. It happens because multiple system layers line up. Policy that makes entry easier and cheaper for new data centers. Power markets that offered cost advantages for big buyers. And capital that moves quickly due to demand spike. Faster than transmission lines and water planning take place. Now the lock-in begins. Transmission investments, like the billions utilities plan to spend, get paid back over decades, largely through customer rates. So the long-term question isn't whether Texas can host AI, it's how the costs are allocated, and whether planning catches up to the speed of construction. HarkResearch.org frames it bluntly. The growth is outpacing policy development, and key vulnerabilities remain around siting, on-site generation, efficiency, reporting, forecasting, and transmission cost recovery. Texas is becoming the AI power capital by making it fast and cost-effective to build. But fast growth always hits a limit in the physical world. And in this case, the limits are measured in kilowatts, gallons, and miles of wire, and eventually in monthly bills.